Hey guys, thanks for joining me again. I'm Megan Aller, a sales executive with First American Title Insurance Corporation here in Denver, Colorado. This week we're going to be talking a little bit about our attached market and why that market looks different than our detached market as of right now. Please keep in mind that as of May of 2017, we had resolution to our builder defect laws that essentially remedied the way that lawsuits were brought forth against builders, making it more difficult. That allowed for builders to come in and create more new construction products for us in a market that we've been starved for inventory for about 10 years now. Keep in mind that the two largest portions of our population being millennials as well as baby boomers, there's very high demand for these attached properties here in Metro Denver. So it was very challenging for us to go through an extended period where we didn't have any new construction coming in. That became one of the most compressed and most heavily sought after products here that we had in Metro Denver. Now, for the first time in about 7 years, we've actually crossed over 2,000 available units for sale in Metro Denver. That represents the largest number of listings that we've had in quite some time. This actually represents a 28.2% increase over the same month 1 year ago, and that's been holding very consistently at somewhere between 25 to 35% increased inventory year over year for about 6 months in a row. That's really great to finally have some additional choices, and before we start to blow that horn that says, oh my gosh, is this a bubble? Is this a more long-term transition? We still have a really long ways to go before we get to a point where there's an oversupply of properties here in Metro Denver. Now, even though we had our inventory go up by 28.2%, our under contracts or contracts that were accepted here in Metro Denver only trended up by 7.7% year over year. So that means that buyers have more choices that are finally available to them as a result of the laws being remedied for builder defect laws. Median days to contract was 10, which is slightly up from where we were 1 year ago. Median days to contract simply means the point at which half of the inventory has been placed under contract. Historically, that's still an incredibly quick sale, while the average number comes in at about 27 average days to contract at this point. We're seeing slightly extended periods of time on market, and this is solely due to increased inventory that's finally available here in Metro Denver. We're looking at average sales price with a solid bump. They are still going up because we're not at a point where we have an oversupply of homes that would ultimately drive down prices. Prices going from April into May ended up trending upwards by about 2.4%. We still had an average sales price record for attached Metro Denver, came in at $375,000, and that's right on pace with where we would expect to be based off of the last 6 or 7 years in this cycle. Closed to list price ratios, much like the detached market, aren't going over 100% like what we had seen in the past. So we're seeing really strong full price offers, but fewer multiple offer scenarios are happening out there, meaning that sellers have to get more on board and invest in the process of listing their homes, creating those cream puff listings so that it draws more buyers' attention to them. Flash sales are the number of units that went under contract in that first weekend. For May of 2019, it actually started cooling early this year, and that number started to come down. We were down to 45.8% from where we were last month. That's down just a few percentage points. However, again, market still remains very strong, with over half of our listings selling for at or over our asking price. However, it's not quite as much as what we had seen in years past. Okay, looking at market conditions, again, there it shows right there as we go into our seasonal transition. Just like we do in the detached market, we have increased inventory in the marketplace and our buyer pool starts to taper off. Active inventory up by 28.2%, but under contracts, we're only up by 7.7%. So as those two numbers depart from each other, that creates more negotiating power, affordability, and opportunity for buyers to get into the pool right now and look for those homes. This shows the cycle as we had projected it out at the beginning of the year. You can see that we've had that increased inventory above what we expected for the entire year, but what's been nice about that is it's serviced some of that demand that's been hanging out for the last couple of years of people that weren't able to make some of those purchases. This now shows the month's supply of inventory in our marketplace, so for those of you that are concerned about a potential bubble, we'll talk more about that next week, but for those of you that are concerned about it, before we can get to a place where we have an oversupply of homes, we have to at least hit equilibrium, and that would mean that we would need to see a 6 in this scale here. As of right now, we're still sitting at about a 1.3. Well, it's about a third of a month higher than what we expected to see at this point. It's nowhere close to that 6 that would indicate that buyers and sellers are on an even playing field. The market still very heavily favors the seller, but here's our favorite term that we've been using in 2019, which is it's a slightly less good seller's market. Okay. Finally, if you wanted to see what it looked like by price range, if you look at those units that are coming to market, the blue bar represents how many have we actually had on average, versus the red bar is what we would need to create that 6-month supply of inventory. So as of last month, we still only had about 22.4% of the inventory that we need to offset demand. As we see more new construction units coming to market, we might start to see those numbers balance out, but we've got time. We're going to see that coming to market. Okay. Finally, last thing is we also have that seasonal transition as we start going into July. It's really important that you start to pull back on your prices. And if you are next to new construction or in the immediate vicinity competing against newer construction, you are going to be more sensitive to price. Okay. So it's important that you start to pull back on that pricing, because this is the point in the year where we reach that inflection point and start to slide into the back half of 2019. Now, we're still going to go ahead and talk next week about whether or not we're entering into a bubble here in Metro Denver. So I hope you'll come back and join me next Wednesday at 10. If we can do anything to help you better advise your buyers and sellers, please feel free to reach out. If you'd like to get a copy of this video blog, shoot me an email and I'll be happy to send this back. We'll see you soon.